Oh, yes. Yes.
Who's going to have the dog barking today?
I may. I've got a 6-month-old puppy, German Shepherd, that, yeah. Annette would just absolutely love that, but I'm like, oh, please, because I have to run the meeting today because Mac is not in the boardroom. So as the vice chair, I've got to run the meeting. So I will pre-apologize for any, and if I'm saying no, stop that. That has nothing to do with the board members or anybody else, okay?
All right, you are live. We're good to go.
All right, welcome. April Fool's Day. This is our County Board of Commissioners meeting. And I would like to call this meeting to order and ask that if you are not speaking, that you put your Zoom on mute. And for everybody, when we do roll call, to make sure that you tell that you're via Zoom and where you're from. And with that, we are going to be led in an invocation by Commissioner Julie Werfel, and then the pledge will be by Commissioner Rayante Bell.
Father in heaven, we come to you on this holy week and thank you for the examples that we can learn from. The triumph of Palm Sunday, the humility of Jesus washing the disciples' feet, the slow march up the hill, and the pain, scorn, and shame of the cross, and then the unfathomable gift of grace and salvation through his death and resurrection. As we take care of our county business today and every day, let us be reminded of these traits and put our service before self, consider all of our constituents, and treat all opinions with respect. Let us make the very best decisions for the health and well-being, prosperity, and community cohesiveness for all of Berrien County. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much for the invocation and the pledge. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Bell.
Present via Zoom, City of St. Joseph.
Curran.
Present via Zoom, Niles Township.
Freely.
Present via Zoom, Baroda Township.
Harrison.
Present via Zoom from Lincoln Township.
Hinkleman.
Present, Waterville.
Majeric.
Present via Zoom, Niles, Michigan.
Meeks.
Present via Zoom, Ben Charter Township.
Scott.
Present via Zoom, New Buffalo Township.
Ballrat.
Present, zooming in from Coloma Township.
Werfel.
Present via Zoom, Royalton Township.
Yarborough. She's there, but she's muted. Hang on. She's coming.
Present via Zoom, City of Benton Harbor.
Mr. Chair, we have 11 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We've all been sent the minutes of the March 25th, 2021 meeting, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Commissioner Freeling. I would make that motion.
Thank you, and support, please.
Support by Commissioner Meeks.
Been properly moved and supported. Any discussion, deletions, or additions to the minutes? Seeing that there's none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Curran.
Yes.
Freely.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majeric.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Ballrat.
Affirmative.
Werfel.
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Yarborough. I see you.
Yes.
Can you raise your hand?
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any communications?
Yes, you should have received 4. One from Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners, a resolution regards to COVID-19, supporting their sheriff and prosecutor in non-enforcing or prosecuting unconstitutional mandates, does not support the expenditure of any county funds for the purpose of arrest and prosecution of any person accused of violating MDHHS emergency orders, calls upon the citizens of Hillsdale County to act responsibly, and calls upon the director of MDHHS to implement a new regional approach to mitigation, received on March 24. Philip Rick Seeger, Watervliet Public Schools Superintendent, email thanking the board for the declaration of state emergency in Berrien County, received on March 25th. Genesee County Board of Commissioners, a resolution supporting passage of legislation to adopt 4-year terms for county commissioners, received on March 30th. An email newsletter from Kelly Stelter, Berrien County 4-H Program Coordinator, the Berrien County Spotlight 4-H Family News, April-May 2021 issue, received on March 31st. That's all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Did all the commissioners receive that? If you haven't, please let us know. And I'm sure the clerk will resend it. If there's nothing there, on 3/11 of 21, myself, along with Terry Freeling, John Eaglehoff from Southwest Michigan Planning Commission, and Administrator Brian Doucette met with Bob Hance, who's the president and CEO of Midwest Energy and Communications, and his staff. We are calling on him to give all the board a report of basically what things are happening at Midwest Energy and in Berrien County. So, Bob, you're there, you're up.
I am here. I think Commissioner Meeks tried to join that meeting as well. I'm not sure, but
Yes, and Jim Curran too. We were having some problems with the Florida connection. You're correct. Yes.
I'm glad to be participating today via Zoom. These are never easy. I always prefer to do this kind of stuff in person. I think there's a lot better outcomes and more information shared when we get to sit in a room together. But all that said, you really do have the second string today on the call, because the meat of my organization are the people who are actually in the field, including the Chief Happiness Officer, which was described earlier. I think I sent a map to Brian, if you want to share that. So I'll just give a quick and dirty synopsis of what that map means and what we're doing as Midwest Energy and Communications with respect to Berrien County, and then hold out for questions, which I'm sure there'll be plenty. So just so we have an idea, and I'm always hesitant to say this this term respectfully, but we participated in the recent auction the FCC held called the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And the part that I'm reluctant to suggest is that we won. It sometimes doesn't feel much like a win when you think about the work that's in front of us. So in the larger scheme of things, we actually won about $37 million that obligated us to spend another 150 or so million dollars to serve upwards of 40,000 folks that were identified in that auction, which included a good portion of Berrien County, as you can see on this map. The RDOF pieces in Berrien County are depicted in the dark green. There's some lighter green on that picture that is actually areas that we're already providing service to. The red lines are specifically to indicate where we're going to be building in Berrien County. So those are actually the physical assets that will be built to serve those green areas that were part of the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction. That's roughly 220 miles of fiber optics that we will be building. And I think the number is close to $7.5 million that we expect to invest building that system. In Berrien County's case, we only received about $2 million of RDOF money, or will be receiving $2 million of RDOF money to build that over $7 million worth of plant. I guess relative to that number, you think about again in the full context of the auction, we will be building 3,400 miles of fiber assets across like the lower tier of the Lower Peninsula. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Is there any additional questions? I mean, we're going to be building about 800 miles per year. Berrien County is actually in the first phase of the build. That's supposed to, we're supposed to be substantially done by the end of the 5th year. Good news for Berrien County and specific to that area is that it's in the first phase. So portions might actually get started to be built yet this year, but more likely the majority will be built in 22. What else can I help you with?
Administrator, can I ask some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you are currently now in Cass County, is that correct?
That's correct.
And from what I understand, you're doing a great job there. And who holds these auctions and where does the money go for those?
Well, the auction is actually a product of the Federal Communications Commission. There was approximately $21 billion in this RDOF fund that was supposed to be auctioned off, and the auction took place in November. So what they identified is areas according to the FCC mapping that weren't receiving 25 megabits of upload speed or download speed of 3. I had that backwards, 25 down and 3 up. So according to the FCC, that all these areas then became eligible for RDOF funding. It's tax dollars that have been collected through the Universal Service Fund. All of us have been paying into it. The money's been going out for years and years and years to incumbent providers across the country that have not done very well, particularly in the rural space. I think Commissioner Freeling could speak to that.
Certainly, some of the things that I have been stating to this board related to the FCC maps and some of the inaccuracies that we've been finding is that there's a large portion throughout Berrien County of underserved, and that's one of the reasons why we were doing the survey. Hopefully we'll be able to have that report from Merit here at the end of this month. But RDOF stands for Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, and it was a really interesting way that the auction happened because it was a reverse auction in that providers, the FCC basically said, here's the areas that we'd like to see services provided. What can you do? And there was some competitive bidding that sort of went on to sort of provide the best application to those areas that were in need. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob. That's kind of a simplistic way of describing it.
Absolutely, Terry. Well, I guess more succinctly, the auction had about $16.1 billion of the 20 or so billion that was going to be available. So they have this process where they set a price of expected price per passing that they will effectively afford in that $16 billion. So what the auction actually did was cause people to bid down to try and serve those areas. And they hit that $16 billion, which they call the clearing round. So that's the amount that they can spend. But the auction keep continuing, and in some areas got bid down to, in some cases, like 1% of the price that they would be willing to pay for people to serve that area. We're happy to say, though, Berrien County, there weren't a lot of competitors bidding in that particular, in those vicinities, I would say. So we hit the clearing round on most of the money that was available in Berrien County. So we are fortunate that we'll get a decent portion, but not really a full portion of what it's going to cost to build up. As I mentioned, we're going to get a little over $2 million, which is actually, we're going to get over a 10-year period. So we don't get a check from the FCC instantly. We have to actually perform and show that we've developed and built and so forth. So that actually is going to hopefully serve about 3,700 folks in Berrien County.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I ask a question?
Please do, Mamie.
Mamie Yarbrough. Sir, I would like to ask, there was a press conference yesterday. Our president, talked about broadband and all of that. And then we in Michigan have $5 billion on the governor's desk. Can some of that money be used for broadband? Is that an eligible expense from any of those places, or that's not anything we should consider?
Well, I think Brian can speak to that. If I understand right, there's actually $10 billion that came to Michigan. And I think the allocations to counties included 31 million, I think, Brian, to Berrien County. I don't know that the rules specifically have been written on how the money is going to get to you guys, but I think there aren't very many limitations from what I understand with respect to how you spend it.
Yeah, and see, I know about the 30. I'm talking about the money we didn't get or hasn't been divided up yet. Those would be broadband, hopefully would fit within those as eligible costs.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may say something, thank you. So Mamie, to your question, there are a number of different pools of funding sources through the FCC and other organizations. The $5 billion that you're referencing that came from the first round of recovery monies is just one. And I think that there are things that are specified with regards to appropriation eligible expenses. And then there's also the Recovery Act funding. And I know that we have had reports from different staff members as well as our administrator who have stated that broadband is an eligible expense with some of those funds. So this is just one of many pools of resources that we could potentially see benefiting Berrien County in the long run for different infrastructure purposes.
Yes, thank you. And there's such a need. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Werfel. Along with that question, if without those funds, how is that difference funded? How are those lines getting funded without those funds?
I assume that's directed at Midwest.
Whoever.
Well, let Brian answer it then.
So without the other funds, more than likely you won't see construction occurring in the rural, low population density areas. I think that with Bob and Midwest's rollout of the project, we're seeing a major increase in the total coverage for rural parts of Berrien County. One thing that Bob's plan does not do is get on to the west side of the county. Mercury Wireless has agreed to come and talk with the board sometime in late April. And at that time, we'll be able to brief the board on what's occurring on the west side. And then something that's been discussed at the broadband committee is having Merit review this plan and then offer some guidance on areas that are underserved that possibly should be considered for the construction area. And it's my hope that we can work with those townships and potentially with Bob's company to see if there's a way to expand the scope of their construction project. Now, those conversations will be occurring over the coming months, so no immediate action.
So we're
I'll
not
just-
taking these to the townships to help additional funding.
Can you restate your question?
So we're not taking it to the townships that this does affect for funding from them either?
I think the opposite. What we're trying to do today was get Bob to announce what's coming, and then to our partners in the townships, if they are not included within that construction plan, if they have a desire to work with the county, we may be able to partner with them to create some type of financial partnership to encourage additional broadband construction.
Just so you have an idea, in our plan, we're expecting to spend $35,000 to $50,000 per mile of constructed assets in the Berrien County. So if we can get on vertical assets in the county, we'll do that. If we can't, then we are forced to go underground. Hopefully that doesn't cause us to have to do a lot of boring. That's probably the most expensive method of installing fiber. So, I mean, there's real cost and expense involved in building a network like this.
Is there any plan for South County?
Well, again, specific to the RDOF auction, South County, for whatever reason, was included in the 25-3 areas that are already being served, or at least the FCC believes they're being served because of data that they have received from incumbent providers. Hopefully the study that you're having done by Merit will kind of outline those areas that aren't truly getting those kind of outputs. So you have a better idea of really what's being underserved.
And I think, in all honesty, I think that that's exactly the reason why this Merit survey was so important for Berrien County. Is it's going to show the underserved areas that are clearly going to be different than the FCC maps. But hopefully that'll happen. I'm just excited to the fact that the county is getting the benefit of your bidding and things. Yeah, you don't get all the way down here to New Buffalo. We'll wait on that, but at least we can see progress for the underserved areas of Berrien County. And for that, I think it's phenomenal.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
One thing for the Board of Commissioners to be aware of, Bob's group has already begun looking at right-of-way permits. So some of the townships that are within the construction scope have already seen right-of-way permits being pulled, and may actually see people out walking the rural roadways as they begin scouting out the construction project. So my goal today was to get you all familiar with Bob, with his group, what they're planning. And then in the event that any township supervisors are asking you questions, you can now go back and reference this map showing the planned construction area.
Brian, just one quick question. Are there any permits for right-of-way on county roads that the county owns that we should be looking at giving to them?
I think at this time, the bulk of what we're looking at is at the township level.
Okay, I just wanted to know because I think that's something that the board could readily take care of. Thank you.
Well, it's certainly something that's going to be beneficial to our ability to build out into those areas. Is the it's not that we're trying to avoid getting permits. It's just that we would like it streamlined to the extent that it can be. So we're not delayed in our construction process.
Commissioner Scott, may I ask, is the date over? You're saying no? Were you shaking your head?
Yes, whenever you want to speak, Madam Chair of Vice Finance, you just do so.
Thank you. Is the time over, Bob, for the surveys you were doing? Did you get many? Have you gotten many? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to tell you a lot about the survey, but we don't have it. That's being done by Merit, I think, who you hired. So we're anxious to see the results of that survey as well. No worries.
You're who are you?
Midwest Energy Communications. We're the provider, not the surveyor.
Okay, but you're okay.
It's okay.
Because I filled out one of them, so I just want to know what.
I hope you filled it out.
I did.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could speak to Commissioner Yarbrough's question.
Absolutely, please do.
So we do have a lot of activity going on related to broadband and broadband infrastructure surveys, things like that. So I can understand a bit of the confusion. Merit is doing the survey, Mamie, and they have wrapped up the survey. The BC BIT, the Internet Task Force, plans to meet this afternoon to get an update on that from Merit. And so we will hopefully be able to report briefly next week on some of those findings. But Mr. Hance is here as the president and CEO of Midwest Energy and Communications out of Cassopolis, Michigan. And they are one of the providers in our area that have received this award. And what I appreciate so much about Midwest Energy and what was so attractive to me when we took a tour during one of our SMART meetings a couple of years ago was your mission statement, Bob, that you have there at your company. And so it was, correct me if I'm wrong, to deliver first-class innovations and solutions where others won't.
That is absolutely correct.
I thought that was really an encouraging statement. And to Commissioner Warfel's question about, if we didn't have this RDOF funding, what would happen? Really, as a former business owner, you'll understand this. It comes down to return on investment. And so by having these resources and funding opportunities out there, it allows companies like Bob's to be able to bring these services to the rural areas that would probably not be seeing those types of services offered for a really long time.
And I apologize. I probably should have fully introduced not only myself, but the company. We're one of the electric cooperatives in the state of Michigan, of which there are 9 of us here in Michigan. Okay. There's nearly closer to 900 co-ops across the country. We were all formed about the same time in the mid to late 30s for the purpose of delivering electricity into the rural spaces.
Okay.
So that's why it's so fitting that our mission statement really reflects that history of the fact that we exist pretty much for the purpose of providing services in areas where there isn't a large interest, and particularly in the rural space. Back in those days, the big electric companies weren't interested in serving rural farms and rural households because it just didn't return for them. So it's kind of the same situation that we have again, different circumstances, but generally, people would argue that the internet and the access to the internet are probably as important, or at least as important, as electricity, water, and sewer for everyone today. So we're excited to be able to do what we're doing. I'm not bragging, but I'd like to tell everyone here that we will do what we say we're going to do, and there is no asterisks behind that. There is no second guessing that what we put in the ground or what we put in the air is going to provide the level of service that everyone's going to need well into the future.
May I say something? That's beautiful history. and the forefathers saw the need. Is that what Niles, Michigan has their own electric? Is that a cooperative? Is that what?
It is not a cooperative actually, but it's not that dissimilar. So it's a municipality that's kind of under the same organization or structure as a co-op. Effectively, the assets are owned by the city, which then, of course, the taxpayers of that city support. So the only revenue that we have gotten in the past before we got into this space, this communication space, was from our membership.
Okay.
And that's why we have to be a little bit guarded when we start expanding outside of that membership. Is we're really asking them to support us building out from where we would build to them. So our initial plan was to make sure every one of our current members was receiving service before we started stepping away or edging out from that service territory.
Thank you.
Very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Hance?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd just like to thank Bob for his time. I'm sure you were going to do the same thing. I'm stepping on your toes, but I want to thank him for coming here today, for taking the time to update the board on what work is happening within Berrien County through the RDOF fund, and I certainly look forward to seeing the project move forward.
Yes, thank you. And I would also like to let everybody on the board know that the type of business that Midwest Energy runs and Bob runs there, I have to say I was very impressed with our meeting. One of the things that really impressed me was his CHO. He refers to it as his Chief Happiness Officer. And this is the person who is in charge of answering the phones and the supervisor and the one-on-one conversations with people. And I just wanted to point that out, that I think more companies should have CHOs.
I gotta just leave you with one other thought too, just so you have I guess a feeling or give you some expression in and around the fact that, you know, you guys are not by yourselves in this endeavor. You're the third county actually that I've done this for, and we have Cass County, even though we serve a large portion of it already with our electric system and now with fiber, there's always those gaps that are still remaining, and Cass County would like those filled as well. So this will be county number 4 when Cass comes in, which is towards the end of April, to talk to us about the same thing. So it's top of mind for all of you that are involved with local and county and township politics.
Thank you very much. And we do appreciate all of the info that you did give us at the meeting. And thank you so much for your presentation here. If there are any other questions that we don't come up with right here, that come up later, I'm sure you'd be happy to entertain those.
Oh, absolutely. You can funnel them through Brian or through yourself or directly to me. Brian can give you our email address out if you want to. And no, I feel like we're in this together. It's not going to get done unless we're all pitching in and finding a solution to the problem. So we're happy to be in the position to be able to help.
And we're happy that you're happy to be in that position.
I'll tell the CHO.
Yeah, we have to get our CHO. We have to get Brian. We're gonna have to work on that. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much, Bob. If nobody has anything else, we can move on to committee reports.
I will step off. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, we're on to committee reports. Jim, Administration Committee.
Thank you, Ezra. Yesterday at noon, the Administration Committee met. First was from the Road Department, Kevin Stack, who went over the Road Department projects for 2021. These are the projects that have already gone out for bid. This is a result of the Road Department's meetings with the townships and prioritizing those projects. Kevin also explained to us the various terminology. You'll see HMA, scratch and seal, ultra thin slurries, those type of things. So Kevin explained the process for each one of those titles. He was asked about the project that MDOT is working on, and if that's having any impact on our road builders or the price of asphalt, that type of thing. And he basically said no, that it's not having an impact, that MDOT actually has a contractor from the northern, either the northern lower from the UP, who's actually doing a bulk of that work. So it does not take away from our local road builders. So he was pretty optimistic that the MDOT project, and I'm talking about connecting the 31 bypass with I-94 and 196, that's not going to have a negative impact on our road department. So we were glad to hear that. Next, we had our 911 director, Caitlin Samsel, and our bond attorney, John Axe, came in and talked to us about 911 capital improvements. And Commissioner Volrath would like to report out on that.
I said I would. I didn't say I'd like to.
You're muted, Dave. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I thought I unhooked it. It was when I looked.
You're back.
Thanks, Jim. We did meet with 911 Director Caitlin yesterday, and also Bill Irwin from Motorola chimed in. They started giving us some enhancement towers that we had built in the past and the cost of those. Back in 2006, the Grand Beach Tower was put up at a cost of 1.2 million, and 2008 was 1.5 million. At the, let's see. Well, I can't read my notes. So anyway, I didn't have access to her notes, her slides and things. But anyway, to give us a cost and the things, the Water Bleed Tower right now, which should be up and ready to go sometime early this summer, we done at a cost of $670,000 because we were able to put it on the Water Bleed Hospital, and they had a lot of the infrastructure, which saved us quite a bit of money there. These things we're looking at now are the things that are going on, be happening in the future, but we have to look at them. There isn't great urgency on them, but if we build a new tower down, we're looking at locations in Buchanan and Niles still. So there's no, hasn't been a determination on where we're going to put it there. And there's also a possibility of combining with Indiana, who wants to make things easier for both of us on both sides of the border, which could be much cheaper. If we put up a new tower in either Buchanan or Niles, we would have to connect all our towers at that point at a cost of somewhere around $4 million. And the cost of the new tower itself would be over $2 million. So we're looking at $6+ million for that. Bill Irwin from Motorola went over with some options and possibly getting that money and how it would happen, but that's still off in the future. And those are options we can look at when we get to that point, because I believe a lot more has to be discussed in committees before it even comes to the admin committee. So we can talk about those later on. After Caitlin left, we had a meeting with Lex and also with Caitlin on a grant that's at no cost to Berrien County. It's the link to Next Gen 911 grant program, which we've sent a letter in to give our approval of getting involved in. There's money available. What they want to do as the Next Gen is make it easier for our ambulances to find people in their homes, because this would give much better coverage. They would be able to get to the people's homes using the satellite rather than their instrument panel. So it's something that you will see in the next week or so. The resolution for that. And you want to add anything to that, Jim?
No, I believe you covered it pretty well, Dave. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Okay, thank you for that report, Dave.
All right, Jim.
Okay, next, I brought to your attention last week a resolution B 2104-193, which is the resolution that Arthur Havlicek came in and talked to us about. And Commissioner Werfel would like to report out on that.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, Jim said that we had a presentation by Arthur last week regarding the funding. This is the funding you were referring to, Mamie, the $5 billion that was released last December under the previous administration. And 3.5 of that is still tied up in bills that have not been approved, that have not made it all the way through. Shortly after our meeting last week, the governor vetoed the bill again. So we had to make a few modifications to that in our committee yesterday. And the final version of that, I believe, is in the packet today in the consent agenda, if I'm not mistaken, Annette, is that correct? Okay, so everybody should have a copy of that. We just updated it to make sure that it made sense with what has happened in the past week with those vetoes, and for the governor and the legislature to work together and get that passed and get the money to the businesses.
Okay, thank you for that report, Julie. Are there any questions on that resolution? Okay, then the next item, we approved a county use property request. It's from the Alex Mandarino Foundation, and I think most of you are familiar with the Alex's Duck Duck Run, which is conducted in the area between the courthouse and the river. It's our property, so they always have to get our permission, even though it's sanctioned by the St. Joe City. It's to be held on June 19th of this year. And we approved that request. The only addition that we made is to our current form to request the use of county property. We asked that a couple of sentences be put in there that the organization will comply with current CDC or state health mandates, because we don't know what it's going to be like in June. This is June 19th. And so we just wanted to make sure we had that covered. Other than that, we approved that request. Lastly, Captain Adams has a resolution that is on the agenda today. It's an added resolution. It is A 2104-205. And the reason it is on the agenda today as an added resolution is this is one of those grant opportunities that they just became aware of. And the deadline to file for this grant is Wednesday, April the 7th. So that's why it's coming to you for your approval today. This is from the U.S. Congress. It's a Homeland Security Appropriations Bill. They have $1 million available for construction projects, and $250,000 are eligible for updates. And so what Captain Adams is asking us to do in this resolution is to apply for the $250,000 update. And the two projects that he will articulate to Brian and to the grant request is a backup for our EOC and our 911 internet and phone lines. If those lines go down, we don't have another means of communication. So you've heard me report out many times on the EOC and the 911 about the redundancies. Well, this is another redundancy or backup to that system. Also, as part of the upgrade, Captain Adams would like to see us add another server out at the EOC to store GIS software and hardware into the infrastructure for the EOC. Captain Adams cited the flooding of 2018, and the current system that we are using really isn't adequate, and it wasn't designed to be used in that fashion. So he would like to upgrade that. So that's what will be detailed in the grant request. But the resolution before you is just authorizing us to request the money. If the money is received, obviously it will come back to the board or if it's awarded, we will approve the receival of the money. This is just to apply for the money. And if there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. If there are no questions, that's our report.
Thank you, Chairman Curran. Does anyone have any questions for admin? All right, seeing that there's none, Commission Chair Bob Harrison from PHS.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. We had our meeting this morning. The first item of business dealt with the Health Department complement change request. They are proposing to add an additional registered nurse. This will accomplish a couple different things. One is to broaden their number of staff able to give vaccines for COVID, as well as give their current staff additional time off. And so the money would come from the state COVID money. And so if indeed that dries up, then the position would be eliminated. So that is on your agenda today. The second is a contract with Woodland Shores Baptist Church to run COVID clinics there. The first one was actually yesterday, and they had about 1,200 people come through to get vaccines. And the next one is scheduled down the road. So we approved both of those. The third item, we had reviewed previously an advanced step hire request for the Health Department. If you remember, Lisa Ackenbrook, the finance officer for the Health Department, had resigned. And so they are hiring Jennifer Kelly Priest. And so they're moving her up in the scale a bit just because of her years of experience in finance. And so the committee had previously approved that. We also reviewed or have presented to you a resolution today to appoint Jill Adams as the new Parks Director. This is a replacement for Brian Bailey. I think all of you know Jill. She's been with the county over 20 years. And so she was interviewed by a very select committee and strongly recommended for appointment to that. And so that is on your agenda today. We also had a discussion with Jill Adams and also Brian Bailey regarding the agreement with our concessionaire at Silver Beach Parks. There is a discussion about extending the contract, as well as allowing the contract holder to add some physical plant improvements at her cost, so that she can increase the amount of throughput and sales at the concession stand at Silver Beach. And so we've asked our Parks Department and administrator, Mr. Doucette, to work on that right away and come to us hopefully next week with a revised extension of the contract language, including the physical plant changes to be made. We would have, Parks Department would have approval of any changes the vendor would propose to make, and then get that to you hopefully by next week. In part, we would like to get these changes made ahead of the Memorial Day start of the season. So that seemed to make sense to us and came strongly recommended by our Parks leadership team, as well as Mr. Doucette. We also did review our minutes and approve those. So couple items for you today, as well as some that you can expect here in the next week. So that concluded our meeting. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Chairman Harrison, I need to make a comment on 2104201. That is going to be phenomenal for the county. I've worked and sat on boards with Jill, and it's so professional, so knowledgeable, everything. And I think this is a win-win-win for the county and for the employees at the park department and for herself. That's all I wanted to make a comment on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
other questions?
Mr. Chairperson,
Yes, go right ahead.
I want to say something. I am so pleased. I wanted to ask that that resolution be pulled out and we vote on it individually. She's a magnificent lady, and what she's done with the recycling and how it's, you know, moved up and all the things. We do such good work, and she does excellent work. And I've seen her in the summer with the young people. It must have been some, you know, like they came, the lifeguards, and they were walking the beach, and she just has a wonderful rapport with all ages. And so I'm real thankful that Jill Adams is now our director of Berrien County Parks. Thank you all for doing that.
And Finance Chairman Yarborough, I had planned on pulling that so it stood on alone, so it's had a standalone vote. So thank you for that. If there's no other questions for PHS, we'll go to Commissioner Yarborough, Finance Chair.
Thank you. Our Commissioner Terry Freeling will make a report on our bid openings, and they were requested, received, and opened by Jake Lideker, who is a financial analyst with our finance department. Commissioner Freeling.
Thank you, Commissioner Yarborough. So yes, this morning we had a number of bid openings. I think it was a total of 7, maybe 8. 4 of them were related to road paint. One specifically was related to the glass beads that are used for the reflective nature of the paint. So we opened and received those and sent them back to staff to review. The other 4 that were opened were related to an HMA overlay. Just to name off the roads that would relate to: Paw Paw Avenue in Coloma Township, Pipestone in Sodus Township, Pokagon in Berrien Township, and Bell Road in Niles Township. So we did open those. They were received and we sent them back to staff to review. So you'll be seeing those likely on the requisitions in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much. The next thing was our Drain Commissioner, Christopher Quatrain, presented resolutions for drains. And I asked Commissioner Ezra Scott, Vice Chairperson Ezra Scott, if he would report on that. And some are new, some are already done, some are being refinanced. So we'd ask Ezra Scott to report on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris came to us today looking at 2 different drainage districts. One of them is F2104203, and that is the Pine Brook Drain. What this is for a 20-year bond. So he's looking for the full faith and credit of the county board, which will save money all the way around due to the county's financial standing. Basically, this is combining 2 drainage districts into one. They kind of overlap, and he's never understood why it was done like that, but this is what he wants to do. There will be, he estimates, a savings of $3 to $6 million savings to the drainage district if they're combined. It's already projected, and the bid's already been let to do this from Kalen construction, which would start probably June or July. This drainage combination and everything was petitioned by the people of the district and the township. They all wanted it. There's 136 parcels in this particular district combined. So it's going to be a substantial savings to the people in the drainage district. So that's one. The next one is the Yellow Creek Drain, and that is F2104202. This is a refinance of a bond that was a 10-year, and Chris now wants to make it a 20-year. There will be approximately $250,000 savings to the district. Basically, it's going to come down to $1,000 saving per parcel. It was odd. Chris had told us how he lived on one of these lots. This was his neighborhood where he grew up. He lived on lot 48. So he knows most of the people there. And they've had a lot of problems with basements flooding, houses flooding, and they fixed it. Along with the Lutheran school there has had a lot of field flooding. They fixed it, but what he wants to do is he wants to take this from a 10-year to a 20-year bond. So those are the reasons why he's bringing those to the full board. If there's any questions, hopefully I can answer. Not, I can get you answers since Chris isn't on with us.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mimi. If you're ready, go.
yeah.
Mimi and then Jim.
Had a question? Jim Curran, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to question the $3 to $6 million savings over what period of time?
Over that 10 years that they add to it, is that correct, Ezra?
I believe it is. Right now, they want to combine these two districts for the Pine Brook and make it one district. So instead of the people getting two assessments, they're only going to get one. And with the interest rates the way they are right now, and using the full faith and credit of the county board, because of our borrowing part, what we can borrow money for, it makes sense because all that's doing is it's saving the county taxpayers. So, and the people in the district, it'll be saving them.
And as I read my notes, it says it's a 10-year note, refinancing out to a bond.
Right.
And cause a return of the $250,000. That's how that is. One other thing, and I think, and you all help me, if it was the Pine Brook Drain, they bought a piece of land, the drain department bought a piece of land to be able to drain this water off. And they believe that, he believes, Drain Commissioner Quatrain believes he can resell that piece of land for what he paid for it, but he needed it for the water to have somewhere to run. And that was cheaper than doing something. I forgot, cheaper than doing what?
Buying an easement
Buying an easement.
Yes.
along the drain. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, that exactly. It was cheaper for the drainage district to buy the piece of property,
Yeah.
to use it for retention, for water retention. And then the other piece that they didn't use for the water retention, they would be able to resell that back to somebody and recoup that money that they had invested in that. But they needed that in order to make it all come together. So, yeah, I mean, we've done these before for the drain commissioner, and it's all about the savings. It's all about the money savings is what it is.
Yeah.
So if I heard your explanation correctly, then the drain commissioner will be saving $3 to $6 million over 10 years.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then that price gets passed back down to the people in the drainage district to lower their assessment.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Then we, by consensus, are sending the bills to you all and the resolutions that you'll vote on today, and that's for the road department and for the regular bills. And then we accepted our minutes. And then we had a presentation to us by Administrator Doucette and Doug James, our finance director, and it's about re-roofing the jail and the courthouse. Brian, I don't have anything in writing. Will you tell us about what we want to do today?
Yeah, so we asked permission to move forward with the emergency repair of the roof at the jail. We have a quote from Professional Roofing based in Berrien Springs with a quoted price of $164,770. And finance was in agreement that this is a project that needed to move forward. Here's a copy of the quote. Ma'am, does that answer your question?
Yes, and so what we're asking is that it be put on under others or wherever it needs to be to vote on. You remember it rained in courthouse. We had a company that had received the bid and their work was not up to par, and we let them go. And we did not have them work on the jail at all, but we know after the snow leaves, this blizzard we're having, that it's going to rain, and we need to move as fast as possible to get the roofs fixed on the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joe and the jail. And so the way things are, expenses are going up with building and the availability of a person, we'd like to ask you as the board to let us bring this resolution to you and vote it so that on Monday, we can get in touch with the person and let them know to start. That's our request.
Madam Chair, this is finance business. This is the Finance Committee report. If you are done, I'd be more than willing to make a motion to move forward with the request to waive.
Well, we're gonna do that now.
To move this along.
Let's take a second and consult with our parliamentarian as to whether this is the time to do it or if we should do it under other business.
Since it's not in there.
Terry?
Let's do this under other business, please.
Oh, Chairman, I didn't know you were here. I heard your voice. Hello.
Oh, yes, hi. Yeah, I was asking Terry if, as a matter of parliamentary procedure, if the Finance Committee should do that now or do it under other business.
Let's do it under other business, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
I'm good with that also too. Yep.
all right. Anything else from finance?
No, that's all we know.
And no other questions for finance? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to public comments regarding resolutions, and that will include the added resolution ending in 4205.
Yes, you have a public comment regarding resolutions.
Okay.
This is from Adolph Peltzer in Hanger Township. I have a hard time commenting on the resolutions. I miss having them on the printed page. How can I say something about them when I don't have them in front of me?
Are the resolutions available online?
They are on our website, yes.
Any other public comments?
There are none about resolutions.
It's, if there's no objection, we'll add 4205 to the consent calendar and entertain a motion and support to approve the consent calendar as submitted.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I would so move on the consent calendar to make a motion, but also P2104201. I would like that pulled for a separate vote, please.
Okay, that's fine. Is there support for the consent calendar, including 4205, but excluding 4201?
Support.
Supported by Werfel. Is there discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman, Majeri,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Mamie?
Yarborough,
Sorry, I'm not on my screen. There she goes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
The consent calendar minus 4201 and including 4205 is approved. Is there a motion with reference to 4201?
Commissioner Harrison, I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Commissioner Scott will support Commissioner Harrison.
Any discussion?
Mac, we discussed this a little earlier. I am completely elated at the fact that we now have a new Parks and Recreations Director, Phil Adams, a true great addition as far as a department head. I have the utmost faith and confidence in her. I've served on several boards with her. She does have a passion, and that's something that is, as somebody once told me, she rocks, okay? And I just think that that's absolutely true, and I think this was a phenomenal selection for a department head in the county.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Who wants to read the resolution, or do you want me to read it?
You would read it, sir. I don't have a printed copy.
All right. So P2104201, unless Bob is PHS chair, do you want to read it or do you want me to?
You can, Chairman.
All right. To the Honorable Board of Commissioners of Berrien County, Michigan, your County Personnel and Human Services Committee respectfully recommends the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas vacancy existed in the position of Parks and Recreation Director, and whereas the vacancy was posted and applications were received, and whereas the unanimous choice of the interview team was Jill Adams. Now therefore, be it hereby resolved that effective April 12, 2021, Jill Adams is appointed to the position of Parks and Recreation Director. Be it further resolved that Ms. Adams' annual salary be set at grade 7, step 1, which translates to $71,296. Bob, has this been unanimously endorsed by the PHS committee?
Yes, sir, it has.
All right, with that then, if there are no other comments or questions, the clerk will call the roll.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman, Majeri,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Excitedly, yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas.
thank you. Madam Clerk, would you, when time permits, provide a true copy of that resolution to Jill Adams?
She already has one.
Oh, she already does?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in color and on pretty paper.
Oh, all right, great.
And that
Great.
will.
Thank you. Commissioner reports. Show and tell. Anyone have anything? Jim?
Yeah, good morning, Mac. Good morning. I would just like to acknowledge Annette as our CHO unofficially.
I'd support that 100%, Commissioner Curran.
I think he makes a perfect CHO. Thank you very much.
Very good. We'll take that under advisement. Anyone else? Okay, Brian, you're on then.
So I just wanted to follow up by thanking the board for their vote to affirm Jill as our next Parks Director. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Jill over the last 6-7 months. I've been real impressed. And I also want to thank Brian Bailey for all of Brian's great work through this transition. Brian has agreed to stay on a part-time basis just to assist with the formal handoff. And to the Board of Commissioners, between Jill and Brian, you've really got some great staff. Those are my comments, sir.
Thank you. General public comments are now in order.
I've asked a couple of times. I just ask one more time just to give people a chance if they'd like to. I don't believe you have any.
All right. Other business, the first thing we'll tend to is the Finance Committee vote. Madam Chair. You'll need to unmute.
Amy, you're muted. There you go.
Thank you. I would like to, thank you, Chairman Elliott. I would like to ask for a motion to put the work of the Berrien County Courthouse and Jail roof would you all say the name of the company? Brian, you know the name of the company?
Yeah, 1 second. Professional Roofing based in Berrien Springs.
Yes, if you put it with Professional Roofing based in Berrien Springs for rounded off $165,000 so that that work can be done and make it effective April 1, 2021. And we're going with the sole source. I'm sorry, the single source and emergency will be the reasons that we'll use for this rush up to do it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I'll make that motion just what you said.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so you're making the motion based on the emergent circumstances that warrant waiving the normal bid process.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is there support?
There's support.
Will the clerk call the Finance Committee roll, please?
Engelmann,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Freely,
Yes.
Yarborough. Mr. Chair, there's 4 yeas.
Thank you. That motion is approved. Brian, do you need anything more to proceed?
I'm notifying staff as we speak. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Still under other business, we've had ongoing conversation about how the current state public health orders are impacting the way we do business, the way we socialize and everything else. You all know, as of today, we're meeting under a declaration of emergency by this board that will run out, if it has to, until the end of June. Hopefully it won't have to. We've also been briefed on numbers increasing, but other important metrics are favorable. The herd immunity, the vaccinations of the older and more vulnerable members of our community, and the relatively static hospitalizations, and thank goodness the mortality rate has not climbed. Is there anyone who wishes to comment about these matters? I can preface by saying I've requested data to show which counties in our state are primarily responsible for the spike in new reported cases. With that, the floor is open if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
Mac, Commissioner Scott, I received something from Mac yesterday, I think it was yesterday, from Derek talking about the governor relaxing and opening it back up for in-house meetings. Something like it, yeah, even waived the amount of people, but we had to continue with social distancing and everything else. So would Brian, did you get that? And if so, would you comment on that, please?
So I've put the information up onto everyone's screen, and the yellow highlights are the pertinent sections of the update to the health order.
What's it say?
I can't see any of that. The limitations to gatherings in these sections do not apply to gatherings of public bodies and attendees of meetings held by public bodies in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
Brian, it's a little too far away to read the print. Annette read it aloud. I'm wondering if anyone knows, is anyone aware if this is a modification to the Open Meetings Act?
So, Mr. Chair, what you're looking at is we were facing two issues tied to the OMA. One was the virtual meeting allowance ended at the end of March. Separate of that, we had the health order, which capped total indoor attendance to 25 people. The OMA issue still is out there. The health order now allows for groups greater than 25 for in-person meetings if it's tied to a governmental meeting. Does that make sense, sir?
It does, but it also looks like something that could create tension between enacted law and an administrative agency's order, in this case, the state public health officer. I'm not paid to render legal counsel, so this opinion's worth every penny that I will charge for it. When there is a specific statute on point and there is a agency, or I should say an administrative order, which addresses that same point, unless the legislature has delegated authority to that agency, the statute prevails. Let's run this by corporate counsel if no one objects, for the sake of clarity. But if I were advising, my opinion would be this does not modify the provisions of the Open Meetings Act. Only the legislature can do that with the signature of the governor on a bill like was done 3 months ago, end of December. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? All right, then let's run it by corporate counsel and get his read on this. Any other business? I was looking for hands. I don't see any. All right, announcements and reminders. PHS meeting next Thursday at 8:30, meeting virtually for the time being anyhow. Of course, we'll meet next Thursday virtually again, unless we get some direction from Lansing. Stand by, Michael. Otherwise, we're going to be meeting virtually. Michael, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess questions for Robert. Did we change from 8 o'clock till 8:30?
Bob?
I'm not sure. I was going to ask Commander Doucette about that because typically we've been meeting at 8. He won't be here next week. Maybe it was an
Well, so finance committee doesn't have to meet next week as of right now, because they don't have any bid openings or anything like that. And so I figured that you could probably get your business done by starting at 8:30.
That's fine. I don't think we would argue with you.
I would offer, though, a resolution formally naming me Commander Doucette would be well received, so.
As long as we can get that official resolution to the CEO for various.
Looking to see if there are any other notes, comments here. I don't have any. We'll make one last pass. Does anyone have anything else to address for the good of the order? All right, if not, I wish everyone a blessed Good Friday, and we'll look forward to Easter next week and getting back together next week, and look forward to it being 65 on Saturday. Everyone have a good rest of the day, and we'll be getting together again within the week.